And it is time once again for another AEW Dynamite review here on the MrWarrenHayes Show. Hello, how you doing? I'm Warren. I've been out with the flu for the past couple of days. It wasn't great. As you can tell, I'm feeling quite better today on this Thursday, October 23rd, where we are going to be talking about the AEW Dynamite edition of October 22nd, 2025, that happened in San Antonio, Texas at the Boeing Center at Techport, to which 1,830 tickets were distributed, according to WrestleTix. So there you go. I don't want to talk too much about attendance this week. I think you all, for those of you who do watch and listen to these reviews on a regular basis, I think you already know pretty much what I was going to say. Not specifically, not really a great number, etc., etc. Weekly shows struggling to draw, etc., etc. It's the same old talking points. I do want to get into this show because there's stuff here that I feel like I'm really going to be on an island about. And, I've seen all sorts of praise being heaped on this show. And I think like this 2-hour show had two entirely different wrestling programs in it. I think the first hour was a specific type of wrestling show, and the second hour was a specific type of wrestling show. And I think there is one out of the 2 hours that was much more successful and much more interesting than the other. And I think, again, if you watch these regularly and you know my tastes, you know how I critique things, I think you already know which hour I thought was really good and which other hour I thought was miserable. That's right, miserable. It's really a tale of two cities when it comes to last night's Dynamite. And I've seen praise heaped upon it. I've seen an extremely high cage match rating for the show, and to the point where I'm sitting around and I'm getting my notes together, and I'm putting all of my brain power into thinking like, okay, how am I going to approach this? And I'm thinking, am I out of touch? And like, I'm literally the Skinner meme at this point. Is it me who is out of touch? Right? Because, but then again, I'm like, no, because the things that really resonated with me also really resonated with everyone else. Yeah, the main event specifically, the Mox Kyle O'Reilly match. These are things that people were really fucking into. And I was really fucking into. But the rest, the things so I'm not completely out of touch. Because if I were to sit here, if I were to sit here and say, these 2 hours of Dynamite stunk, then probably, then it'd be like, yeah, Warren, I think you need to step away here. But that first hour had me wondering, what the hell am I watching? So like I said, circling back, I know like I'm sort of brain dumping here quite a little bit, quite literally, frankly. Thank you for bearing with me. But like I said, circling back around, we have the tale of two cities, the tale of two AEWs. One that can deliver high quality, excellent pro wrestling on a weekly basis, and the other which clasps on to the worst possible sports entertainment instincts it could have. And this is the duality that exists within AEW. And I can only imagine the production meetings and the creative meetings that exist, and how much of how much it is about everyone sort of jockeying for what they know and what they've been through, their own experience, and all trying to make it come together. We're never going to escape the presence of sports entertainment in AEW. We're just not, because some of the people who work there as producers, as some of the creative minds, worked for years under Vince and have the mentality of, well, this is what wrestling is in 2025, so might as well go with it, right? So what we get are what we end up getting are knockoffs of what WWE used to do, instead of focusing on what makes AEW really fucking special, what really sets it apart. On my Wrestle Dream review, I made a point to say, to emphasize that stuff that they did at the pay-per-view, there's things there that WWE could never do. And that's what makes AEW special. That's why things work. Starting off a pay-per-view mid-match, WWE could never do that because they can't sacrifice their entrances. You can't sacrifice the entrances. That's 60% of the show for the WWE viewing audience, right? What am I saying? 70% of the show for the WWE audience, right? It's the entrances. The main event, the I Quit match. WWE could never do that. And WWE could never do that because of the online reaction that the house media had and all the online WWE pilled pundits. They completely lost their shit. And that's how AEW is doing things right, because they're challenging the status quo. They're making these people feel uncomfortable. They're catering to a different type of wrestling fan. But then you get an opening hour consistently made up of promos and a completely silly angle that I did not like. And you wonder, well, is this what AEW strives to be? Or is it what we saw in hour 2? Which way are we going here? Look, I have made peace a long time ago in regards to AEW being, a sports-based presentation, right? It has its sports entertainment side of it, and we're not going to escape it, folks. That's just how it's going to be. But there are things that happen on these shows sometimes, like last night, that are just so baffling and egregious. And I'm like, what are we even trying to do? Why are we going down this path? Whatever happened to this promotion that could deliver excellent pro wrestling from top to bottom, week after week? Why is it that the pay-per-views are consistently high quality affairs, and then we get to the weekly stuff and you just go, that's essentially, it just goes. If we had a Dynamite, if the entire 2 hours of Dynamite had been like the second hour, I'd probably be here screaming at how great it was, praising it, saying, this is what AEW should be every week, and want more of this, and this is how you're going to get people back in the buildings, and so on and so forth, right? But instead, that's not what we got. To the point where I'm wondering, how does this even make any sense? That we got, within the same 2 hours of programming, two entirely different visions and perceptions of a pro wrestling program in 2020. It's just bonkers to me. But enough. Look, I think I've done enough preamble. I think where I stand on this show. And listen, you are more than welcome to disagree with me. I might be talking about some things here where you're like, Warren, this is nonsense. But look, I can only talk about what I saw. I can only talk about what I saw and how it made me feel and how I react to it based on what I know and have established in my brain as standards for my perception of professional wrestling, right? That's what I do. That's why I critique. That's why I review. So of course, none of what I say is absolute truth, but it is absolute honesty. So let's get to it. Let's start talking about it. Show opens with a recap of Wrestle Dream that follows up with some backstage footage of Hangman Adam Page. He's in the trainer's room after his match against Samoa Joe, warning basically Samoa Joe that he's coming for him and that he's going to ruin his goddamn life. And this would be the only appearance of the AEW World Champion on the show tonight. That leads us to the opener, where the Ops defeated the Hurt Syndicate to retain the AEW World Trios Championship. I thought this was just like borderline fine, you know, maybe a 2 3/4 star match. I didn't think this was anything special. Like, my highlight to me was the heat that the Ops decided to get, I should say, when Bobby Lashley and Powerhouse Hobbs first had their face-off, right? And then Samoa Joe tagged himself in when the audience was getting into it and was chanting meat, meat, and they were cheering and whatnot. So Samoa Joe tags himself in, and that was really funny. I thought that was a good way to get some heat, so that it's like to reinforce the fact that the Ops are heels. And I mean, look, it is what it is. Ricochet interferes out of nowhere. He's back. We're not done with this feud. Oh, and we are not done with a bunch of feuds we thought we were done with. Like, if you were expecting this Dynamite to, set us down some new paths, some brand new feuds with some fresh battles, boy oh boy, were you in for a shock when you saw when you watched that Dynamite. So Ricochet interferes, but that's enough for Samoa Joe to be able to lock MVP in the Coquina Clutch and get the win over the Hurt Syndicate. And then the rest of the Demand, the GOA, show up with Ricochet. All three of them are at the top of the ramp, and that then drags the Hurt Syndicate to go after them backstage. And yeah, look, and also, yeah, like the whole Demand thing, and I don't know if it's just the Demand thing or if it's the Demand with the Hurt Syndicate stuff. I talked about it on the Wrestle Dream review, but I find Ricochet's role now in AEW to be much, much, much less interesting ever since he did his heel turn. I thought he was one of the more entertaining aspects of the company. I thought he was, something that week after week I was looking forward to seeing what he was going to be up to, what kind of antics he'd get himself in. I thought he was a tremendous shit heel on top of that. Now, I don't think he's as fun. He feels like another guy now, and I don't think that's to his credit. So after everyone's gone, the Demand, the Hurt Syndicate, Samoa Joe is on the microphone. Tony Schiavone is there to ask him essentially why, Joe, why. Before we get to the answer, though, Joe goes all Charles Barkley on the big old women of San Antonio, even referring to the fact that they keep Powerhouse Hobbs busy. All right. It's a bit of a throwback. It's a dumb heel heat, but I thought it was pretty funny. And basically, was there to answer the question, why, Joe, why? And he basically says, as long as I'm around and you're a champion, I'm hunting. I did it because I exist. And, and he's coming for the world championship again, saying that the Ops stand in opposition to everyone and they're never lacking. All right. So that was good. That was a good promo. to sort of elevate a very, very, very ordinary match that happened before. Mercedes Moné arrives in a car, a luxury car. I don't want to call it a limousine because I don't think it was a limousine. And she is flanked by two rows of boys, dudes, gentlemen, like not legitimate boys, not like children, but young men. And they're all sporting one of her 12 championships. So there you go. We'll get back to that in a second. This moves us over to Chris Statlander, who's having a backstage interview with Renee Paquette. Says that she's proud of her rivalry with Toni Storm. She's focused on the future, not the past. And basically says, hey, you know what? Full gear, you and me, Mercedes Moné, for the World Championship. Let's do it. And wishes Moné a nice celebration later in the evening. We get another promo, this time by Darby Allin, who comes to the ring with the AEW flag that he took to the top of Mount Everest. Did you know that Darby Allin went to the top of Mount Everest? I don't know if you heard, but Darby Allin went to the top of Mount Everest. I think they said that in passing maybe once over the past couple of months. So I'm glad that they constantly remind us that he climbed to the top of Mount Everest. I think that's very, very important. So Darby Allin tells us, that he went to the top of Mount Everest, and basically reflects on people saying that he shouldn't be the face of AEW, and he says he should because he's ready to die for this place, and warns the Death Riders that as long as they breathe, he'll be right behind them. And you're like, nah, they can't possibly be continuing this feud, right? Then we get another promo. This time for Jurassic Express, who are, basically saying we're coming back to reclaim our legacy and, the AEW Tag Team Championships. What, okie dokie. But that's a lot of promo, leading us to Jamie Hayter and Queen Aminata defeating Harley Cameron and Willow Nightingale, Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford, and Julia Hart and Sky Blue, under the stipulation that the winner of this match would choose their first round opponents in the AEW Women's World Tag Team Championship tournament. Of course, the brackets hadn't been released but these were, at least this established that these four teams were going to be participating in said tournament. I thought this was good. Just a good match, but there's a lot of instances in this match where you're like, oh, I would like to see a one-on-one with these two, right? Like Willow Nightingale and Megan Bayne. You're like, oh, this is really interesting. But there's the women's division in AEW is, I legitimately believe, has, and I know it's easy to say year after year, but I don't think it's ever been this strong. And I think it's extremely top heavy. Like when you get to the top of this division, it is extremely, extremely high level professional wrestlers that they have in their employ. And then there is a very steep drop off once you get out of that circle. Let's say, in this match, let's say Willow Nightingale, Jamie Hayter. Let's throw Megan Bayne in there, and then of course Moné and Storm. But then very, very quickly it'll drop off, and then you'll have like Harley Cameron and Sky Blue, and where you're like, these are not the same caliber wrestlers. No disrespect. They're just not the same caliber wrestlers. And I think it was apparent in this match as well. I think it really did underscore like how much things drop off once you start getting out of that top sphere in the women's division. I'll tell you, I like the little finisher that Jamie Hayter and Queen Aminata have, where it's like the headbutt and the Haterade. when standing, holding up Penelope Ford and just the head and the lariat, and I'm like, okay, well, that's pretty. I like that. That's pretty dope. So since Hayter and Amanada won, they get to decide. They decided, I should say, to go with the combination of Heart and Sky Blue for their opening bracket. We'll talk about the brackets in a second. How about another promo for this, or another backstage segment where the Bucks are rapping on Tony Khan's door, on his office door to get another money match. I had noticed, I didn't know if they had been doing this for a while, but I noticed last night, and again, this might have been a thing they've been doing for a while. I just noticed last night that Tony Khan's nameplate for his office is essentially the art for the Time Cop movie poster. So like the font and the sort of the red clock thing. Did I miss that over the past few weeks, and it just popped at me last night? Maybe because I was looking for anything to entertain me, because this was, like I said, this was a dismal first hour. Because look, here's the thing. The Bucks they want another money match, right? Because they're broke, and I'm kind of sick of it. I'm kind of fed up about it. And I know if the Bucks were to hear this, they're like, well, we don't care. We're having a good time. And what is the trade-off here? Me being annoyed at the Bucks doing shtick, but then them being motivated enough to go have great matches whenever they show up, or them stopping to do shtick and then they get demotivated and then they stink in the ring. So what's the trade-off here? Well, stink, or they don't put the effort in. Let's put it that way. So what's the trade-off? What's the trade-off? I guess if them doing character bits and doing a little bit of comedy makes them turn around and have tremendous matches like they had at Wrestle Dream again, like this year, they're all throughout 2025, right? Because the Bucks have had a tremendous 2025. Then I'm like, okay, well, let them do their goofy bullshit. Because if that's what it takes for the Bucks to get motivated again and continue to show that they are one of the greatest tag teams of all time, if not the greatest tag team of all time, I'm fine with that. I'll take whatever nonsense they want to do and just accept it for what it is, with the trade-off being, well, the Bucks are going to be into it, though. They're going to have some great matches. I'm like, okay. So Tony Khan comes out of his office. He should be in Gorilla. I don't know how things work anymore. He comes out of his office and he makes a 4-on-4 all-star match for $400,000. It'll be Jurassic Express and Jet Speed versus the Bucks and FTR, who come out of Tony Khan's office. And there's a bit of tension there, of course. And Stokely gives Nick Jackson $1 condescendingly, and nonetheless Nick Jackson pockets it because he's poor. I think the talking point here that no one is underscoring here is that FTR is in the office with the boss, and what they're politicking. Are they getting in there and playing politics? Anyway, look, I was like, man, can't people just beat each other up? Like, there's been so much talk in this first hour, and all the promos are like fine. Like, outside, let's say, of Joe's opening promo, which of course was very good because it's Samoa Joe. Everything else is just like, it's fine. Darby's promo, the Chris Statlander's promo, the Jurassic Express, like everything is fine. And nothing is setting the world on fire, and it's one after the other, and then we get this bit, and then it leads into Mercedes Moné, and they did this on the hour, right? If I'm not mistaken. This is how we opened up the first quarter hour of the second hour, with Mercedes Moné coming out with her belts and her dudes, and we're doing the celebration, right? Which is the most WWE coded thing ever, the title celebration. championship celebration. Like, it is the most WWE coded thing. It's even a thing that, as far as I know, WWE doesn't even do that anymore. It's something that WWE used to do like 4-5 years ago, but they don't do that shit anymore. They don't even do it anymore. So we're aping things that the other guys do, or at least haven't done in years, because they themselves have grown out of doing it. We're doing their bad stuff from years ago. And again, why are we doing this? Well, look at the producer list. Look at the people who work in the creative aspect of AEW and ask yourselves, I wonder why we're doing these things, right? Because these are all people who used to work, who left working for Vince 4, 5, 6 years ago to go work in AEW, but had been working with Vince for all those years. So of course, like, this kind of shit happened. And then, like, the whole stuff with the puppet, and, you know, it's like, why is Mercedes Moné, international superstar, right, going around the world, hitting the indies, a true international pro wrestling star who's carrying all of her belts? Why is she addressing the puppet? Why doesn't she just fucking grab Harley and drag her out of there? Why are we putting the puppet's face into cake? Because we got the cake face plant from a puppet, for a puppet, I should say, and for Mercedes as well, because Statlander shows up to face plant her into the cake. I swear to God, I swear, people, I am watching this and I'm like, these are all the reasons I stopped watching WWE. These are all the reasons I hate that company, for this type of bullshit. It's the most redundant, overdone tropes. And it doesn't make sense for Mercedes, who is a champion, a superstar, to be talking to a puppet, to be addressing the puppet. Why didn't she just drag Harley out from under the table and beat her up? And be like, okay. But now she looks like a goofball. Everyone looks like a fucking goofball here. And I'm thinking about the segment again in my head. And it's even worse, where it's like, like I said, Mercedes comes out with her belts. That's not even how it starts. It starts with the puppet. It starts with Harley Cameron as the puppet talking to Renee, and Renee's going tee hee hee. I'm like, what are we fucking doing? What are we doing? And Mercedes is calling the audience stupid, dumb marks. But I'm really? Because to me right now, there's someone else that's looking pretty dumb. And I guess that's the heat, right? I guess that's the heat. She's calling people dumb, but then she's talking to a fucking puppet. I want to make one thing clear. There's a lot of people, there's a lot of discussion around puppets in pro wrestling. I don't give a shit. I don't care. It's not that big a deal. To me, it's not that big a deal. I enjoyed the Harley Cameron puppet skits backstage with Mercedes, back when they were doing that. They didn't bother me. This is too much. This is too much. And it all leads to the most absurd, uninteresting, unfunny shit, predictable. It's almost, not almost, it's lazy. It ends up looking just completely lazy. I don't know did this make you all the more excited for Statlander versus Moné? Did it amp you up for their match at Full Gear? Suddenly are you like, yeah, let's go? No, it was dumb. It was stupid. I feel like, especially in the circles that I hang out in, I feel like I have a higher tolerance for nonsense than a lot of people do. But this was too much. It went too far. I don't understand it. Why did we face plant the puppet into the cake? I don't care. It's stupid. Mercedes getting face planted is stupid. All of this reeks of shit that Vince McMahon finds really funny. And to that effect, Warren Hayes does not. I think it's dumb. I think it's dumb and distracts from this being a pro wrestling show. I don't know. I've never seen Nigel McGuinness shove Bryan Danielson's face into a cake as part of their feud. I'm just saying. Don't think Raven ever did that to Tommy Dreamer. Don't think Ric Flair ever did that to Ricky Steamboat. Oh, but I guess this is what wrestling is, right? But from this point on, from this moment moving forward, after this dreadful first hour there was a good wrestling match, right, with the women. But then again, it was good. Talked about it a little bit, but everything, a dreadful first hour of Dynamite. Now that we have all of that behind us, now the show takes a complete sharp turn and we cut to Jon Moxley, bruised, battered, a glass on his back at WrestleDream, and he's looking straight. He is cutting another excellent, serious, frightening Jon Moxley promo. How the fuck do you go in the same fucking breath? Do you go from puppets being stuffed into cake to Jon Moxley in a bathroom nursing his wounds and talking darkly about Darby Allin and how his attitude of never say die is going to be his downfall, and how he's worried about himself, that about quitting. He's got this anxiety now about quitting. He being Mox tries to shove it down, tries to show that he's stronger than he truly is, saying the Death Riders will continue to be the standard in pro wrestling. I know who I am, and that's all that matters. We're getting character development from Jon Moxley minutes after getting a goofy cake spot. And then Mox, once again, continuing to establish himself as the ace of the company, hits the ring to fight Kyle O'Reilly in a very good match. Kyle O'Reilly's another guy, right, who tries to push so hard the fact that he's a nice guy and he's quirky and he's funny. Here's the thing. Here's the thing. I think Kyle O'Reilly backstage is probably a funny guy. Like the guy if you work in an office or in a factory, wherever, there's going to be one guy who's funny. There's going to be one guy who everyone thinks is funny, and he's a cut up. He's always got an astute observation to make. He pokes a little fun at other people on staff, but always nicely. He's not being harsh. Just a guy who's funny in his environment, right? But then when it's time, let's say you're like, oh, you should do stand-up. Usually that's, you're so funny, you should do stand-up. And then maybe the guy goes to an open mic night, I should say. Maybe he goes to an open mic night, because all of his friends at work gas him up and you're funny, you should go do some stand-up. And he goes to the open night mic and he bombs horribly, because there is a difference between being funny for people around you in your day-to-day life and going out onto a stage and performing comedy so that other people who don't know you, who don't understand all of your references or your own references, your own reference, that don't understand you specifically, doing comedy for those people is an entirely different ball game. And I think this is what it is with Kyle. I think Kyle backstage is probably, I think he's like I said, he's probably a very nice guy, a cut up, a guy who likes to joke around, makes people laugh, and they're like, you should use that in your personality. But then when he does, it doesn't come across funny. It doesn't come across as, it comes across as try hard, right? But then Kyle O'Reilly, when he decides that he's going to be what he does best, and that is a kick-ass, violent pro wrestler who understands this game better than a lot of his peers do. He tears the house down. His match with Mox was excellent. They had such a good fucking match. And on top of that, telling a really good story where Mox felt he was in trouble throughout his match. Kyle always seemed to have answers for everything he was doing. And Mox doesn't know what to do. He's in an ankle lock at the end. Doesn't know what to do. Doesn't want to tap, but he's stuck. He doesn't want to quit 2 appearances in a row. So what does he do? He takes the coward's way out, because that's essentially what it is. This is the story they were telling. He was so much in trouble, he didn't know what to do, that he just blatantly hit the referee to force a DQ. Now, I love this match. Thought it was very good. Thought it told a very good story, and it was very entertaining. I hate the finish. Not the finish of Mox elbowing the referee. He knocks out the referee, and then all the other refs suddenly swarm the ring and call for the DQ. And I'm like, what is this? This is unprecedented. This never happens. This never fucking happens. Where the refs run out. Let me take this from another, let's do this from another perspective here. What usually happens in these circumstances where there's a ref bump or a ref gets taken out, right? And another referee runs in to take the spot. What happens usually? The match continues. The ref doesn't run in to call the disqualification. He runs in and continues the match. That is historically what happens in pro wrestling when a referee gets knocked out and another one comes in to replace him. Now, for some specific reason here, it's the complete opposite. First of all, it feels like the entire referee corps runs out and they call for the bell. Now, I don't mind AEW doing this, okay? If it means that we're establishing this standard moving forward. Because the next time that there's a ref bump and another referee runs in to call for the bell, comes in to replace the ref, they better have him call for the bell. You know what I mean? The match better not continue. Now, I know this doesn't happen very frequently in AEW where they have the ref switches and whatnot, but nonetheless, like in the canon of pro wrestling, in everything that you know about pro wrestling, if a referee gets taken out and another one runs in to replace that referee, the match just continues. The new ref doesn't call the DQ or anything. That's just it. It's just been like this for years, right? So if this is a new standard that AEW is establishing for their refereeing in these types of circumstances, I'm all for it. But I promise you, the next time that a ref gets replaced mid-match because the original ref took a bump, was taken out, and the replacement referee doesn't run in to call the bell, I'm going to have a fit. I'm just telling you, be warned. I'm going to have a fit. But otherwise, this was fantastic. Of course, leave it up to Jon Moxley to fucking save the day, right? It continues to be the ace of this company. And then after the match, the Conglomeration and the Death Riders, they all get together. They're all brawling, and they all go, and Mox and Marina Shafir hit the bricks, and that bleeds into Roderick Strong and the Conglomeration defeating, the Conglomeration being Orange Cassidy and Mark Briscoe. They defeat the Death Riders trio of Claudio Castagnoli, Daniel Garcia, and Wheeler Yuta. And this was so much fun. Now, I'm watching this match and I'm thinking, look at this fucking trios match. Look at how much fun this trios match is. Look at the trios match we got to start the show, where I'm like, I don't want to go on off on this ramp again. I don't want to take this off ramp again. I don't. What analogy am I trying to do here? Regardless, I don't want to say this again. But the trios matches, the trios titles are mismanaged. I don't know why they're so uber protected. This is the kind of environment. These are the types of matches that the trios titles should be defended in. Fast-paced, crowd-pleasing, great spots, great double teams, triple teams, chaos. That's what they should be about. Because that's what this match was. It was chaos. It was so much fun. And everyone was hitting their spots. Everyone was hitting their spots. They were doing great stuff. Everyone was into it. It was so much fun. Mark Briscoe gets the win on Wheeler Yuta, hits the J Driller, and it was so much fun. Like, it was one of these 3.5, 3 3/4 super fun trios matches that we should be getting every week, but with the trios titles and with, energetic matches like this, or with the high flyers, or bringing some luchadors from CMLL. Like, that's what these trios titles should be, instead of being uber protected. And who cares? Why there's no, anyway, like I said, I don't want to go back. I really don't want to go back down this path, because I feel like I'm aggravated enough by stuff that happened in the show. I don't have to create stuff for myself to be aggravated. It's fine. This show has it under control for me. After the match, Pac jumps in, attacks Mark Briscoe. Tomohiro Ishii comes in to make the save. Marina Shafir low blows Tomohiro Ishii. Then Darby Allin shows up, and he rushes in with Sting's bat, and he takes out Claudio Castagnoli with it. And we're trying to get off some orange punches, and it all, look, at the end, the baby faces stand tall. And is Darby Allin really not done with Jon Moxley? Or is he going to feud with the Death Riders? I would argue that unless he's going to feud with Mox again, which is preposterous to me, because I thought that was a great way to close the feud, the I Quit match. I don't know why you'd continue. But if he goes to fight, let's say, Claudio and Pac and whatnot, that feels like we're stepping backwards. You could have used Jon Moxley to elevate him, to push him up another level, to have him fight another top guy in the company. But instead, I feel he'll be dragged back a little bit. That will halt some momentum, if you ask me. If that's what we do. Mercedes Moné is backstage. She's still covered in cake because, of course, it's been 30 minutes, whatever, or 20 minutes, and she hasn't cleaned herself off. And Athena rolls up, and she basically suggests that they become a tag team and join the World Tag Team, the World Women's Tag Team title tournament as a team. Might as well talk about the bracket right now then, because that was revealed for the tournament. So like we just said, this is how the brackets are going to go. How about that? We'll just go through the brackets. We'll have Queen Aminata and Jamie Hayter, as established earlier in the evening, that will be taking on Sky Blue and Julia Hart in round 1. Willow Nightingale and Harley Cameron will be taking on Mercedes Moné and Athena. Alex Windsor and Riho will be fighting Toni Storm and Mina Shirakawa. And Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford will be facing Tay J. I think it was clear from the get-go that Toni Storm and Mina Shirakawa were going to play an important part of the tournament, because I even think they're going to win. That was always, I think that's the projection. I think it's very easy to make, because I am all for, out the gate, having them held by, top stars like Toni Storm. I think it gives prestige to the titles. I think I think it's a good plan. And it's overall good, right? I think the only tag team I find that is completely unnecessary in this circumstance is Moné and Athena. And it's not because I don't like either of them. I do. I just don't think they're necessary. I think what would have been really interesting with this setup here is you use it to promote a true to form women's division. So you could have thrown in another tag team here. Hell, you could have brought in the Renegades, the Renegade Twins, right? They're supposed to be under your employ, right? You could have brought in the Renegade Twins, established, look, this is what our tag team division looks like. But clearly, Monet and Athena are not going to be a tag team in this division moving forward. This is just a convenience thing. Like, without a shadow of a doubt. They're probably going to beat Harley and Willow in the first round, but I don't think they're going to go the whole way. This is the thing. It's like, I don't think they're going to go the whole way if we expect the finals to happen at Full Gear. There's a very fair chance that that'll be the scenario, because Mercedes Moné is going to be challenging for the AEW Women's World Championship. So she's not going to go to the finals if they're in at Full Gear. So already it's like, it's kind of pointless. Like, I don't understand why they added that team specifically. I feel it could have benefited from another tag team. Look, I was talking about it with Kristen. You really could have used Nyla Rose in this circumstance. I think there's a lot of fans who want to see Nyla Rose on TV. Nyla Rose and Yuka Sakazaki could have been a really fun team. If only for antics and chemistry. I think that could have been really interesting. Just give some shape and flavor to your tag team division here, which they do a pretty good job overall with. You know, these are all teams that have been established over the past few weeks. I think Tony Khan did a tremendous job making most of these tag teams, I do say most here, most of these tag teams, you know, appear on TV, form alliances at the very least, see that, oh, these two are looking out for each other. They did that with Hayter and Aminata towards, over the past couple of weeks. The only one I think comes out really out of nowhere is Alex Windsor and Riho. But they're clearly a team that is going to lose in the first round, right? But TJ's an established tag team forever. Bane and Ford is the same thing. Willow and Harley, they've had a match or two together. They even had the matching gear. I think they debut the matching gear at the pre-show for Wrestle Dream. It could be, Sky and Julia Hart are an established tag team. So, it's not as if it's all random shit thrown together, but it's like, look, I think there's a good shape to the division, but I don't know, Monet and Athena, maybe I'm being nitpicky here, but Monet and Athena feels like unnecessary, I guess. But they're interesting brackets. I'll be curious to see who. I mean, I think it's fairly safe to establish that Tony Storm and Mina Shirakawa will be moving forward. Tony and Mina are going to defeat Windsor and Riho, and then they're probably going to fight Bane and Ford, who have been, a tag team forever at this point. Although you could make an argument for Bane and Ford, but nonetheless, Monet and Athena are going to move forward. And since these are two strong heels, I'm assuming that Aminata and Hayter are probably going to move forward as well, so that you can have a proper babyface, versus heel situation. So, off the top of my head here, my prediction would be Storm and Shirakawa versus Aminata and Hayter in the finals, with Storm and Shirakawa winning the titles. And I don't necessarily have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with your former world champion winning the titles, setting the bar, adding prestige to them, and then feeling like, okay, there's a high bar to cross. And I wouldn't mind if they lost them afterwards, shortly thereafter, to Penelope Ford and Megan Bayne. Kyle Fletcher cuts a promo. Well, at least he starts cutting his promo, basically saying that he's established his dominance over Mark Briscoe and that we're done. But Mark Briscoe's music hits. He comes out and he says, "No, sir, we're not done. I want one more shot." And Don Callis basically takes the microphone, starts talking about family, how The Don Callis family is a real family. We look out we look out for each other, as opposed to your family, Mark. I know you have a lot of people in your family as well, but your folks are just like, they're leeches that suck everything out of you. You know, that's the angle he takes on this one, and he calls him desperate. And yeah, listen, if you thought we were done with, look, you could do worse by running Kyle versus Briscoe again, and then finally Briscoe getting the championship. You know, it'll be an interesting story down the line. But running it immediately back again, look, I mean, this is the problem that we have with the show after, is that we're going to be running Hangman versus Samoa Joe again, but everyone was expecting that because of the post-match attack at Wrestle Dream. We seem to be running Darby and Mox again. At the very least, it'll be Darby and the Death Riders, or Claudio. I don't know, but we're certainly down that path. We're running the Hurt Syndicate and the Demand again. We're running Kyle Fletcher and Mark Briscoe again. Like, I know the top guys are gone, but Jesus Christ, we could be mixing it up a little more here. Then again, this could all be leading to the Blood and Guts thing, and then from Blood and Guts, we explode into something. I just don't know. I don't know, but I'm not going to fantasy book, but I'm calling it as I see it right now. Mina Shirakawa, backstage. They say they're going to call themselves the Timeless Love Bombs. All right. And that's where they reveal the brackets. Tekla, or it's after they reveal the brackets, but Tekla shows up to challenge Mina for a match on Collision. And then we get the main event where Kazuchika Okada successfully retained the AEW Unified Championship against Bandito in an excellent match. Another excellent main event match where Bandito delivers, just goes all out. God, the people love the Bandito. They really do. And Kazuchika Okada deciding to put on the working boots and have a super great match with Bandito. This was excellent. No qualms. Like, this second hour was awesome. It was just fantastic. Great stuff. Great action. Lots of really clever near falls when it comes to Bandito. Like, his hope spots led to his incredible comeback. Like, the match was so well put together, and the guys delivered on such a high level. It was a tremendous main event. Okada literally survives by hitting an emergency Rainmaker, because he ate the 21 plex, he ate the X knee. He was done. He was done. But throughout the match, Okada was working the shoulder. Bandito's hurt shoulder. He was zeroed in on it. And it even got Okada out of his usual game. Okada had to mix it up to focus on the shoulder, doing the shoulder breaker, right? That's not something you see Okada do a lot, but he was playing smart on this one, doing things to weaken the shoulder, and those things prevented Bandito from getting the quick pins, after hitting his finishers, allowing Okada to regain his senses. And man, when he just stood back up, I think it was after the second 21 plex, right? I think. And he gets back up and he just grabs his wrist and he runs into him, completely runs him over with the Rainmaker. I'm like, shit, this rules. That's fantastic. It was just incredible stuff. A great main event. Don Callis' family comes to celebrate in the ring. And then Konosuke Takeshita comes out at the end, but to his own music. And he comes out with the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship belt. And he and Okada sort of stare at each other. And Okada, he's in the ring and he's smiling and he's kind of taunting him. It's like, hey, what are you doing? What you got there? It's like, and Takeshita, he's taking offense to this. He's like, hey, wait a second. I just went out and won the world championship that you were the main guy in that company. I won that belt and you're still mocking me? You're still not taking me seriously? This battle of egos between these two dudes is fantastic. Hell, Kyle Fletcher had to step out of the ring to go talk Takeshita down from rushing to the ring to beat down on Okada. This feud is being built so well, like clear tension. Don Callis is denying it. It's fantastic stuff. And I really hope they continue to stretch this out to the C2. I really hope that it all comes down to Takeshita, the story being Takeshita is the new Okada, where he becomes the guy in New Japan and then beats the best tournament wrestler in the world in a tournament. Like, just going out and becoming, showing that he is the next top guy. He's the next big Japanese megastar. It's him. It's not Okada. It's Konosuke Takeshita. I hope it stretches out till then. It's a perfect story. It's such a good story. I hope that's what they do. So there you go. Yeah, don't let my enthusiasm for this last match in this last hour of the show to give you the impression that this was a great Dynamite. It was a half and half Dynamite. The first hour, dismal. The second hour, extraordinary. I was so into it. Just excellent stuff. So again, you don't have to agree with me. That, of course. In fact, I kind of hope you don't, because I like hearing contrary opinions and I like feeding off of people coming at me and saying, well, Warren, I thought this, and that. I'm like, okay, well, you make a good point. And that's healthy. But look, I know this Dynamite is getting tons of praise. I don't think it deserves it. I think the second hour deserves tons of praise, while the first hour should be buried under the earth. I think it should be relegated to memory, never to be spoken on of again. How about that? Hope you speak about the Dynamite review that you just saw, though, and that you talk about it with your friends and maybe show it to them, maybe share the link around. That'd be tremendous. Or leave a like here on YouTube, or a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, or a 5-star rating on Spotify. If you're listening to this on Thursday, I will likely be back later this evening for some streaming on the YouTube channel. Otherwise, we'll be back on Wednesday for another edition of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. Thank you all so very much for listening. Go watch some Randy Orton and get back to me, and I'll see you next time.